GM, everybody. It is Friday, the 7th of February, and let's get straight into Bitcoin. Obviously, I did a pretty thorough update yesterday in terms of giving my latest views on where the market is about to head over the next few months. There's not too much that's changed since then. Obviously, we have recently had the NFP, the non-farm payrolls data out, and the unemployment rate in the US. If we just actually look at those numbers, we can see that non-farm payrolls has come in a little bit less than the expectation. So this would suggest that the jobs market is cooling. However, unemployment rate has come in lower than the expectation, which means that actually less people are unemployed, which is obviously good news. So kind of mixed, not really a big deviation away from the expectation. I mean, we can see non-farm payrolls go negative. It can be positive. It could be several hundred thousand up or down. So we haven't seen really any sort of outlier or anything to really shock the market, or I think take the market out of its current position or the current status quo, which is obviously consolidation and sideways grind in terms of cryptos at least. So just one more take as well that I saw that I did want to share. This guy saying the US job market's healthy, higher participation, lower unemployment, higher average hourly earnings beside the NFP revision notes. Obviously, there were some revision notes about NFP being revised, I believe, downwards over 2024. He's just saying there's no time for Fed cuts. Financial conditions are already very loose. So he sees no rate cuts coming anytime soon. I have to kind of lean towards the same right now and sort of say that this really just keeps us in this range. So we're probably not going to see a significant move higher or lower. Obviously, the market has sort of popped up today. So far, Bitcoin trading about 3.2% higher. If we look at the liquidation heat map, we can see over the last 24 hours, and this is something I talked about last night, that we had these liquidations around this 100,000 mark that I thought we might come in target, and we have indeed sort of gone through those. So the more aggressive shorts in the market have now been liquidated. If we just look over a couple of other sort of time frames, you can see on the 48-hour the same, not too much below yet. And if we just look on the weekly, this will kind of give us a slightly longer term liquidations that are currently in the market here. We can see we still do have some liquidity sort of higher above 102,000. So, you know, does the market have the catalyst to actually come up and attack this level and take these out? I'm not too sure if it does. I mean, surely there were sort of better catalysts over the last week. Obviously, when David Stacks was talking about the Bitcoin sort of strategic reserves like or sovereign wealth funds, we've had all of this sort of bullish news coming out, and we've not been able to attack these liquidations. So it's possible that actually we come more to the downside and sort of target any sort of longs below recent prices coming down to maybe around about sort of 93,000. Obviously, there's not as much here as there is above. There's about double above. But of course, if we're going to stay in the range and we're not going to go higher and attack these, then the alternative is we're going to come lower. And I think that's probably the way the market will go today. I can see us probably putting in a top around this level, maybe coming a little bit higher, but potentially sort of coming and filling in some of this wick finally. Maybe that happens over the weekend. Maybe we go into next week, but I'm expecting that over the next few days, probably for us to make one more test lower, maybe coming down to all the way down to the lower of the range, maybe some relief sort of in the middle of the month, and then end of the month, I think we probably test our lows once again. And in March, obviously, March is going to be the next Fed meeting. I think March is probably being optimistic. The next opportunity we're going to get for the market to then start pricing in potentially some more dovish Fed comments and some more positive news at that Fed meeting. I don't really see what is going to turn this market around. The market is clearly not responding positively to any of the news coming out around digital asset stockpiles, Bitcoin strategic reserves, US government, buying Bitcoin, Trump Trump's own company launching a Bitcoin plus ETF. Eric Trump talking about Bitcoin's a great sort of place to buy here. Ethereum's a great buy here. The market's just not responding to this right now. So until we get a new narrative and a new catalyst, I don't really see things changing. So it's as we were with Bitcoin, to be honest. No real change to the current outlook from yesterday. Ethereum as well. I'm expecting Ethereum probably fails between this 2.8 to 2.9 level. I'd be very surprised if we come above 3,000. I think 3,000 would be very strong resistance on the first test. All things remaining constant and equal, I think it's likely Ethereum probably comes down and trades a bit lower here, likely down into the 2,300 area. Like I said yesterday, we've got these levels here. We've got 2,000 sort of 400 to 2,500 here. So that's obviously a longer term trend line that we've got in play, along with our 50% Fibonacci retracement for the cycle so far, coming in around about 4,900. Sorry, 4,000. Sorry, 2,492. I can't read the numbers on my screen. So potentially, yeah, 2,400 to 2,500, I think will be an area. And then if we lose that, likely coming down to 2,200 to actually retest the whole of this wick. I think that's probably going to be worst case scenario for this month, and then potentially we'll see what happens in March. Obviously, sort of more hawkish Powell, not still no movement on interest rates. I think could get us low to some of these lower prices. So yeah, right now the market is just sort of consolidating and pretty flat. Not a lot happening. Same with Solana. Like I said yesterday, we got our targets in here coming in around about sort of high 170s. Then we got around 160. Worst case scenario around 145. I think at some point the market does pick up, that we do have that macro shift that we're waiting on. Dollar coming down, interest rates sort of forecasted to drop more this year, and that we go onwards and upwards for another leg higher. And people are talking about selling may go away. Well, that seems to be in front run now. So I don't know who's going to be selling in May, but obviously we're going to get to a point here where everybody that wanted to sell has now sold. The market's going to get exhausted. It's going to run out of sellers. We're going to go through maybe, a further capitulation, some sort of depression, anger, and then obviously we'll start to mark up again when enough people have thrown the towel in, and nobody's really left to sell. And then I think we probably rally up. Maybe we rally this year in the summer when people are least expecting it. Like historically, if we're dumping during what should be crypto's most bullish months, then if we're going to dump through those months, then potentially we might rally through the months that are historically bearish for Bitcoin and crypto. And maybe it just goes completely the other way. And maybe we put a high in, sort of ahead of when people are expecting it. If people are expecting a high in October, maybe that high comes in sort of August, September this time, or maybe we see it come in October and everybody's like screaming for higher in November and December, and then the top comes in when people are not expecting it, probably around some really, really positive news. And that could be the announcement of the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and actually the green light on that actually going into practice, going ahead. That could be on, like I say, I've been talking about potentially staking happening for the Ethereum ETF. Solana ETF gets approved, potentially that gets staking as well. These get announced later on in the year. Everybody gets really excited. Market takes a final leg up, and then that acts as the top of the cycle. So there's still my current thoughts. There's not too much else to really cover here. Pepe just really looking weak, struggling, trying to hold on here to sort of this trend line, but I can see obviously if the markets do make another retest lower, I can see Pepe coming down to around like 600. That's where I'd be interested in going back into Pepe myself. I'm still holding some, but I have lightened up quite a lot. Just looking at the dollar then, DXY, I think it's becoming consensus now that the dollar is going to weaken, and potentially that results in the dollar sort of chopping a little bit higher for the next month or two, putting a bit more pressure on crypto before it does actually come off lightly into the summertime. Stock markets looking a lot better than crypto is, to be honest with you, pushing back to all-time highs. So once we've got Bitcoin kind of middle of its range, we've got the Nasdaq towards the top of its range. Of course, what we might see is we might see a rejection and stock markets come back down to the mid-range. But I do think at some point, stock market does go higher later this year. Just trying to front run that Fed pivot whenever it does happen. Nobody knows when it's going to happen, but we just have to imagine at some point it will happen. We do know Trump does want lower interest rates. He does want the dollar down. So, and the approach is the approach he's taking. He's basically saying, if the Fed aren't going to lower interest rates, and we're not going to have lower interest rates, then the way to sort of weaken the dollar and bring down inflation is going to be to drill for oil, obviously bring the oil price down, which is a massive component of inflation. So, it's the old drill, baby drill. That's what he's looking to do, and that's his approach. And I think over time that will just take time. It will just take like months to obviously see that in the data, but potentially we start to see that coming through later this year, and we start to see some nice moves then. The S&P kind of similar place, like close to all-time highs. Potentially, if it rejects here, we need to come down one more time. But I think later on this year, it's probably looking good for more extension in the stock markets. Like obviously, markets like to range fairly often. And that's what we're doing right now. We're just kind of range bound, waiting for the next direction, which, like I say, probably does come from some progress on inflation over the next few months. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, just back on Bitcoin, just to recap then. So Bitcoin's still range bound until it's not. Obviously running into a bit of resistance here around 99,500. Potentially, if we do reject there, then we look to come down and try the lower side of this range one more time. If not, if we can push through, then potentially we run up to around about 102 and looking for some sort of reaction around there as well. I don't really see a catalyst for us to go um, right back to all-time highs right away. Obviously, there are big buyers in the market, but a couple of big buyers is not going to completely change the sentiment or the momentum of the market. It looks like the market wants to consolidate a bit more. Probably, the max pain scenario is sort of sideways and probably a bit more downside on the alts here. I think that's probably what plays out to get more people to capitulate, and then the market looks to go higher, probably in 1 to 2 months' time. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will talk to you all on the next one. GM, GM, GM.